Welcome to History Beyond Sleep, where we uncover the secrets the textbooks tried to hide.
In the oldest part of Vatican City, below the Sistines painted ceilings and beneath the footsteps of the faithful, there is a hallway that ends in silence. It is not marked on the maps of pilgrims. It does not feature on blueprints, nor is it whispered in guidebook Latin, but it exists. And for centuries it has been locked, not by neglect, but by design. They call it porta incognita, the unknown door. If you ever found yourself among the archivists, those robed guardians of knowledge, who rarely speak above the hush of parchment, you might hear its name spoken only once, and never again. A legend, they'll say, half smiled away. Something for fiction, for Dan Brown, for dreamers, but every archive has a shadow, and every silence a reason. The Apostolic Archive, the Vatican's most private inner sanctum, has always held a reputation, not merely for its size, but for its secrecy. Rows upon rows of scrolls, books, ledgers, letters, receipts of kings and curses, stacked beneath the surface of belief. Some say it contains over 50 miles of shelving. Others say it holds the breath of the world. But beneath even this, deeper still, lies porta incognita. The hallway to it is narrow, barely wide enough for two monks to pass shoulder to shoulder. The light here does not behave as light should. Torches flicker dimly, not from lack of flame, but from something else. Almost as if the walls absorb illumination, the way old velvet absorbs sound. At its end stands the door, plain, unadorned, and oddly modern, made of a deep gray alloy, not wood, not iron, not known, known, there is no visible handle. Only a series of 6 circular indentations in the shape of a cross, almost as if awaiting fingers or memory. A report from 1947, long buried in the librarian's private records, described it this way. The door exhibits qualities inconsistent with both time and material expectation. Touching it induces an auditory distortion like a choir heard underwater. This report and others like it were sealed, but in a forgotten footnote, an annotation scribbled by a tired priest reads, "It is not locked, it is listening." Rumors, like seeds, take root in places where light does not reach. And in this shadow of the Vatican, one particular tale grows stubborn. It tells of a Jesuit engineer named Fra Girolamo Alessi, born in 1603, an inventor, philosopher, and some claimed a mystic. Alessi was a curious figure, often seen carrying blueprints into the bowels of the library, his robes stained with ink and copper dust. He served as both scholar and designer of protective vaults, many of which are still in use today. In 1641, Alessi requested permission to create a vault unlike any before it, for the protection, he wrote, of that which must neither be worshipped nor destroyed. The Pope at the time, Urban VIII, approved the project, under the strict condition that it never be revisited. 3 years later, Alessi vanished. His final known letter, addressed to his confessor, ends with this cryptic line, "I have heard it breathe." No search was launched, no inquiry made. The Church said nothing, but his architectural drawings remained. Scattered through the margins of other texts, his name scrubbed, his vault unmentioned. Except by the few who found the door, A surviving fragment of diary from a Vatican scribe in 1896 reads, "There are humming sounds at night. Not rats, not pipes. The new assistant touched the 6th ring today. He didn't sleep afterward. He said he dreamt of wheels inside the stars." By 1903, the hallway was officially bricked over. A marble saint was placed where the corridor once began, palms open in blessing or warning, and for the next century silence returned. But silence never lasts. In 1973, under the direction of Cardinal Enrico Valenti, a man deeply invested in the reconciliation of science and faith, the Vatican permitted a brief exploratory survey of its deepest levels, ostensibly to reinforce the structural integrity of older rooms. The project was quietly expanded to include magnetic imaging and acoustic mapping. What they found near the blocked corridor was not rot or weakness. It was vibration, consistent, rhythmic, like a pulse, measuring precisely 3.21 hertz, far below the threshold of hearing, but well within the frequency range known to cause anxiety, nausea, and in rare cases hallucinations. Valenti ordered a halt to the exploration. No reports were made public, but a year later the cardinal resigned. Without explanation. His personal copy of the Book of Revelation, discovered years later, had a single passage underlined in red ink, and the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. Speculations vary wildly. Some claim the Vatican is concealing an alien artifact brought from a crash site long before Roswell. Others whisper of an antediluvian engine constructed by a civilization older than the flood, capable of storing information in the very fabric of matter. Still others say it is simply a machine built by men, forgotten by time, buried by fear. But perhaps the truth is simpler still, that the door was never meant to be opened, because once it is, we may not be able to close it again. As the candle burns low and sleep begins to fold its soft pages around you, think not only of what is locked away, but of who locks it, and ask what truth or terror would drive even the holiest man to turn the key and then forget it ever existed. For in the heart of silence there is always something listening. And beneath the Vatican Library, the door waits still. There is a room within the depths of the Vatican archives that breathes not in the literal sense, but in the way a forest breathes when you step into it, a stillness that moves, a quiet that notices. Here, behind a veil of dust and secrecy, lie the scrolls that are never shelved. They do not rest in catalogues. They do not respond to keywords or index fingers. These are the scrolls kept in the scriptorium obscura, a chamber mentioned only in papal footnotes marked by silence and the scent of old ink and ozone. They are too dangerous to destroy, and too strange to ignore. Unlike the bound volumes and gilded tomes that line the public shelves of the Vatican Library, these scrolls are not wrapped in reverence. They are wrapped in leaded glass, in copper wire, in silk soaked with cedar oil. Some are held in metal cages, as though they might unfurl on their own. Others are chained not to prevent theft, but to prevent escape. Their origins are murky. Some arrived by sea, others by conquest. A few were gifts, but many, perhaps most, simply appeared discovered in monastery walls, buried beneath catacombs, or left unclaimed at Vatican gates. Their materials defy explanation: leather that resists carbon dating, inks that glow briefly when touched, languages that rewrite themselves when translated aloud. One scroll in particular, the phosphorus fragment, has no beginning or end. It loops infinitely, each reading altering the reader's memory of the previous passage. A scribe in 1831 spent 12 days transcribing it. On the 13th, he walked into the Tiber and did not return. His manuscript was found half complete, his handwriting perfect and lucid until the final line, where it begins to curl upward, like a spiral or a scream. There are rumors, of course, whispers from archivists and initiated scholars. They speak of the living scrolls, a cluster of 7 fragments believed to have come from the same unknown source. Not parchment, not papyrus, but something else soft to the touch, faintly warm, like the skin of an animal that died dreaming. When unrolled, they emit a sound, not a voice, but a chord, like wind passing through hollow bones. One Jesuit physicist under papal commission in the 1950s attempted to analyze the resonance. He noted that each scroll's song corresponded with precise astronomical frequencies, alignments of planets, eclipses, solstices, he concluded. His report with one unsettling line: "These are not texts. They are instruments." Their content is no less curious. A scroll known only as the language of roots contains diagrams of plant structures that do not match any known species. Yet when placed near soil, the parchment seems to darken, and the ink grows more legible as, though drawing nourishment from the earth. Another, the Codex Avum, appears blank at first, but when held in candlelight, it reveals a timeline of events that have not yet occurred. It predicted the fall of the Berlin Wall, the burning of Notre Dame, and the resignation of a pope, all written decades, sometimes centuries, before they came to pass. The Vatican, for its part, neither confirms nor denies the existence of such documents. In rare moments of transparency, spokesmen simply refer to special items requiring extraordinary preservation. Preservation from what? They never say. Then there is the scroll of ashes, perhaps the most feared of all. Recovered from a collapsed monastery in Syria, it arrived with no covering, no seal, no mark of origin. Its contents, when read aloud, cause spontaneous weeping in the listener regardless of language. 3 cardinals collapsed while hearing its recitation. One later described the experience as remembering something I had never known but always feared. The scroll has since been bound in an airtight cylinder, placed within a vault marked by a single Latin phrase, non legator. Let it not be. Read. What, then, are these scrolls? Are they relics of a pre-human civilization, as some fringe theologians suggest? Gifts from watchers beyond the stars, encoded in symbols and song? Or are they simply mirrors reflecting back the truths we are not yet brave enough to carry? Some believe the scrolls are alive not in the biological sense, but in the energetic, spiritual way that a flame is alive, that they respond to intention, to proximity, to fear. One nun reportedly fell unconscious while dusting the scroll cabinets. She later awoke repeating a phrase in a language no one could translate. The phrase has since been recorded in 7 other encounters with no known connection between them. In 2006, a rogue researcher leaked a grainy photograph of one such scroll to a fringe publication in Berlin. The image showed a ribbon of text, unlike any alphabet, curling upward like smoke from an invisible fire. The researcher vanished a week later, the photo erased from all official servers. But the memory remains in the forums of the curious, in the footnotes of forbidden books, and in the eyes of those who have seen more than they should. Still, the scrolls remain quiet, contained, yet impossible to ignore. Perhaps they are messages from the beginning of time. Perhaps they are warnings from its end. Or perhaps they are something simpler, proof that the written word, when truly unbound, has the power to bend the world. And so the Vatican watches, not to destroy, not even to hide, but to wait, to see if the scrolls will change again, to see if we will dot now. As your thoughts grow quieter and your breath slows, let your mind wander through that dim, humming room beneath Rome. Imagine the scrolls unfurling and the candlelight letters dancing, symbols sighing, secrets waiting to be. Read dot, but not tonight. Tonight they sleep beside you, and in the dream that follows, one may whisper your name dot in the golden corridors of genius, where invention dances with madness and insight bleeds into heresy. One name echoes louder than the rest. Leonardo da Vinci, painter of angels, architect of war, and dreamer of the future dot. We remember him by his art Mona Lisa's haunted smile, the Last Supper's frozen breath. But there are pages of Leonardo's mind that never made it to canvas, pages that never should have. The Vatican holds them still, not as treasure, but as warning. They do not file these sketches beside his celebrated folios. They are not numbered in the Codex Atlanticus, nor displayed in the vaults of Milan. Instead, they rest in an unlabeled drawer, locked beneath 3 seals, one of wax, one of iron, and one perhaps of something older. The priests who first encountered them in the late 17th century had no name for what they saw. The lines were Da Vinci's hand, unmistakably so, his flowing left-handed script, mirror-written in deliberate secrecy. But the subjects, not flying machines, not anatomical studies. These were machines of perception, devices designed not to act, but to see, to peer into things that should not be seen, to listen where no sound has been made, to observe time not as a river, but as a sphere. The main sketch is often called La Sfera del Silenzio, the sphere of silence. Drawn in dark ink on brown parchment, it depicts a globe suspended by a lattice of copper filaments and crystalline threads. A note scrawled beneath reads, Per sentir cio che accade senza voce, to hear what happens without voice. The device appears simple: 2 concentric spheres rotating in opposite directions, driven by a winding key of extraordinary delicacy. But closer inspection reveals equations in the margins, notations that reference vibrations measured in celestial terms, not earthly ones that an archivist once referred to the diagrams as a tuning fork for reality. Another simply wept after, reading it, saying only, he wasn't trying to build something, he was trying to remember it. Where did Leonardo get this idea? Some believe it was born from dreams. Others suggest it was whispered to him during his stay with the Vatican in 1513, when he worked under the protection of Pope Leo X. At the time, Da Vinci had become more than artist or engineer. He had become observer of deeper laws. He wrote of shadows that move without light, of the number 13 appearing in nature, of golden ratios not found in beauty, but in decay, there is a record long buried of a private audience Leonardo held with a mysterious figure dressed not in priestly garb, but in a robe covered in geometric embroidery. No name, no title, only a single phrase preserved from their encounter. The machine already exists. You will remember how to draw it. Years later, in his final notebooks before death, Leonardo wrote, "The eye does not see all. It is the mind that must learn to look backward." This line, dismissed by most as poetic musing, appears again verbatim along the inner margin of one of the Forbidden's blueprints, etched faintly into the page, only visible under firelight. Scholars have since suggested that Leonardo's device was not meant to look forward nor backward but sideways, into the folds of time, into parallel moments, into echoes. In 1938, a team of Vatican physicists secretly reconstructed part of the sphere based on Da Vinci's drawings and translated. Commentary. Using copper coils, crystalline pendulums, and a chamber lined with leaded glass, they attempted to activate the design during a solar conjunction. What followed was not recorded in full. Only a single page remains from that experiment. A personal letter from the lead engineer, never mailed, found decades later in his effects. It reads, "The sphere began to hum, softly at first. Then it became aware. It showed us not visions, but reflections. I saw my father, though he died years before. The others saw their own secrets, not illusions, but fragments. We turned it off, or thought we did. It still hums in my sleep." Shortly after, the device was disassembled. Its parts scattered, some melted down, others buried beneath the Vatican Observatory. The sketches were resealed. The name Da Vinci never again spoken in connection with the project. Officially, it never happened, but silence is its own confession. A few brave voices still ask, why was a man of art and anatomy sketching quantum resonances 400 years before their discovery? Why was he constructing devices that mirror modern sensors and theoretical instruments? And why did the Church, which often suppressed science, choose to protect this? Perhaps because some truths are too fragile for disbelief. One final note. Among the sketches there is a smaller page, barely 4 inches wide, written in microscopic Latin. It contains a single phrase, repeated over and over like a chant. Non videre est videre. To not see is to see. No one knows if Da Vinci wrote this during a moment of genius or madness, but its meaning lingers like fog on glass. To close your eyes and still witness. To shut the book and still remember. And now, as sleep begins to call you home, consider this. What if the future was not invented but recalled? What if every dream of progress is a memory trying to return? And what if beneath Vatican stone, Da Vinci's sphere still waits, not to be built, but to be understood? In the quiet halls where knowledge sleeps, the archivists are its silent shepherds, keepers of memory, guardians of secrets too fragile for light. Among them, one name lingers like a breath held too long. Father Matteo Ricci, not to be confused with the Jesuit explorer of China. This Matteo was a 20th century scholar, known for his gentle curiosity and whispered fascination with the Forbidden's vaults beneath the Vatican Library. His story is a shadow stitched into the fabric of the archives, a mystery whispered by those who dared to remember. Ritchie was not a man of spectacle. He worked quietly, meticulously, often late into the night. In 1927, he was appointed to catalog a recently discovered cache of manuscripts recovered from a collapsed monastery in the Apennines. Among the texts was a strange codex, written in a script that shifted subtly with each reading, a phenomenon. He recorded with both awe and fear. In his diary, Ritchie wrote, "The letters move like living things. They flee my gaze, then return with secrets I am not ready to hold." It was this codex, later known as the Codex Umbra, that first drew him closer to the hidden layers of Vatican knowledge. Ritchie's obsession with the Codex Umbra grew. He began noticing patterns between the manuscripts and the architecture of the library itself, secret passages hinted at in the margins, doors that appeared only when shadows aligned just so, and in the heart of it all, the mysterious porta incognita, the unknown door. He confided to a trusted colleague, "There is a labyrinth beneath us, not just of stone, but of meaning, each text a key, each word a door." On a rainy autumn night in 1931, Ritchie descended into the deepest archives alone. He carried only a lantern, a notebook, and the Codex Umbra. Hours later, when a search party was sent, they found only his open notebook pages filled with frantic, spiraling script, and the faint echo of footsteps retreating into silence. He was never seen again. Rumors swirled. Had he unlocked the unknown door? Had he stumbled upon a secret so profound it consumed him? Or had he been taken by those who guard forbidden knowledge, a silent sacrifice to preserve the sanctity of mystery? Some say Ritchie found a room where time does not flow, but folds a place where past, present, and future coexist like threads in a tapestry. Others claim he discovered a machine ancient and alive that could read souls as easily as books. Whatever the truth, his disappearance cast a long shadowed dot in the decades that followed. The Vatican took extraordinary measures. Archives were reorganized, access restricted. New archivists were sworn to silence, and the Codex Umbra locked away in a vault whose key was said to be buried with Ritchie himself. Yet fragments of Ritchie's writings survived. His diary, smuggled out by a sympathetic librarian, tells of dreams that bled into waking hours of voices reading from the Codex, of shadows whispering in Latin and ancient tongues. One haunting entry reads, "The texts are alive. They breathe in the dark. Tonight I heard them calling my name, not in words, but in sorrow. I fear they know my fear." The diary ends abruptly, mid-sentence. Ritchie's fate remains unknown. His legacy, however, is a reminder of the delicate balance between knowledge and silence, of the price paid when curiosity steps beyond the threshold. As your eyelids grow heavy, imagine the dim glow of candlelight flickering over ancient parchment. Hear the soft rustle of pages turning themselves, secrets unfolding in the quiet. And wonder if you too were to follow the whispers, would you find the way out? Or would you become part of the silence beneath the Vatican Library? Beneath the marble floors and towering shelves of the Vatican Library lies a secret chamber unlike any other place, where the quiet hum of ancient knowledge blends with the faintest scent of sulfur and aged herbs. This is the hidden workshop of an alchemist long erased from history, a man whose name lingers only in cryptic footnotes and the whispers of the initiated. Athanasius Kircher. Kircher was a Jesuit polymath of the 17th century, a man whose curiosity spanned languages, symbols, and sciences forbidden or forgotten. Within the walls of his workshop, legend tells, he pursued a singular obsession, the blending of ancient alchemy and divine technology. The workshop was discovered during a restoration project in the 1920s. Workers uncovered a hidden door, sealed behind a false bookshelf. Inside they found shelves lined with glass vials containing unknown liquids, powders that shimmered faintly. In the darkness, and intricate devices of brass and crystal machines that seemed more magical than mechanical. Among the relics was a manuscript titled The Occulta Machina, the Hidden Machine, written in a cipher no scholar has fully cracked. The Vatican swiftly claimed the workshop as a sacred site, sealing it off from public view. Only a handful of trusted archivists were allowed entry, sworn to silence under penalty of excommunication. The machines Kircher designed blur the line between alchemy and technology. One device, a globe inscribed with runes and gears, was said to simulate celestial events with uncanny accuracy, predicting eclipses centuries in advance. Another, a delicate contraption of lenses and mirrors, purportedly translated light into sound, a precursor, perhaps, to modern spectrometry. The most enigmatic artifact, however, was a small obsidian box, etched with cryptic symbols and rumored to contain a philosopher's spark. Some believe it was a battery. Others say it was a vessel of spiritual energy. Kircher, single quotes S notes, hint at a goal beyond earthly science. To harness the breath of creation itself, he wrote, and awaken the silence within matter. In one rare memoir, a 20th century archivist describes the workshop's eerie ambience. The air felt alive as if the walls listened. I heard a faint hum like a heartbeat in the darkness, and the shadows danced not from candlelight, but from something older, something unseen. Kircher's work bridges worlds, the sacred and the scientific, the mystical and the mechanical. His hidden workshop is a testament to a time when knowledge dared to dream beyond the possible, reaching into realms still veiled in silence. What, then, is the legacy of this alchemist's sanctuary? Is it a forgotten chapter in the history of science, or a warning whispered through centuries, urging caution when curiosity touches the divine? Tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts begin to drift, imagine stepping into that hidden workshop. Feel the cold glass of vials in your hand. Hear the faint ticking of unseen gears. Sense the spark of ancient wonder humming softly beneath your fingertips. And know that some mysteries, like Kircher's machines, wait patiently silent and awake beneath the stones of time, amid the countless tomes and fragile parchments of the Vatican Library. Some manuscripts carry more than words. They hold light itself, captured and woven through ink and pigment, shadows and flame. Among these treasures is a volume whispered about in hushed tones by those who have glimpsed its pages, the illuminated manuscript of shadows. Unlike the gilded, radiant manuscripts famed for their gold leaf and vibrant colors, this book seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its vellum glows faintly under moonlight, yet in daylight its pages appear almost black dense with layers of deep indigo and midnight blue. The illuminations within this manuscript are unlike any other images that shift and shimmer as if alive, as if breathing in the soft flicker of candlelight. They portray scenes of twilight realms, places where light and darkness entwine in delicate balance, where the boundary between reality and dream fades. The manuscript's origins are shrouded in mystery. Some scholars trace it back to a forgotten monastic scriptorium in the Pyrenees, others to an obscure sect that vanished in the shadows of the Crusades. Its author is unknown. Some claim it was crafted by a single hand. Others believe it to be the work of many, passed down through generations of secret illuminators. Within its pages are coded messages, hidden in the interplay of shadow and light. Marginalia and faded ink speak of a language beyond sight, a form of knowledge that can only be understood when one surrenders to silence. One of the most fascinating features is the manuscript's use of shadow glyphs, symbols that seem to emerge only when the pages are viewed at certain angles or in particular light. These glyphs are said to convey instructions for ancient rituals and forgotten sciences, blending art and technology in ways modern scholars still strive to comprehend. When one leafs through the manuscript slowly, the images reveal layers of meaning. A garden blooms beneath a silver moon, but the flowers are eyes. A river flows with liquid starlight, yet its currents whisper of time's passage. Figures clad in robes of shifting shadows gesture toward doors that may or may not exist. Manuscript has been the subject of secret Vatican study for centuries. Its pages are carefully preserved, yet there are moments when the light shifts unnaturally within its bindings, moments when those who study it report strange sensations, a weightlessness of thought, a dissolving of boundaries. One archivist recorded in a private journal, "While reading, I felt as if the room dissolved, as if the manuscript was pulling me into a realm between waking and sleeping. The shadows were no longer on the page, but within me." This manuscript, much like the other forbidden technologies beneath the library, challenges the notion of knowledge as fixed and static. It invites us to consider knowledge as a living, breathing presence, one that moves and shifts like light through a prism. Perhaps its greatest lesson is one of humility, that true understanding requires surrender, letting go of certainty, and embracing the dance of darkness and illumination. As your thoughts soften and your breathing deepens, imagine holding the manuscript in your hands, feeling its cool vellum, tracing the shimmering glyphs with gentle fingers. Let the shifting shadows soothe your mind, inviting you to drift between the seen and unseen. And as you close the book, remember, sometimes the deepest truths are found not in what is revealed, but in the quiet spaces between the light and shadow, beneath the vaulted ceilings and ornate frescoes of the Vatican Library, in the quiet spaces where light bends softly around stone. There exists a secret few have dared to speak of machines shaped like men, crafted centuries ago, and hidden away like ghosts in a forgotten workshop. These are the mechanical men, automatons conceived by minds as brilliant as they were mysterious, designed not just to imitate life, but to embody the sacred. The origins of these creations trace back to the Renaissance, an age when art and engineering entwined in a dance of divine curiosity. Among the figures behind these inventions is the enigmatic Giovanni Battista della Porta, a scholar who blurred the lines between science, magic, and faith. Inspired by ancient texts and the promise of unlocking nature's deepest secrets, he sought to build men not born of flesh, but of gear and spirit. Descriptions of these mechanical men are sparse, shrouded in coded correspondence and veiled references in Vatican archives. They were said to move with uncanny grace-walking, speaking in low tones and performing simple tasks. But more than machines, they were symbols, emissaries of divine wisdom, reminders that creation itself is a sacred art. One surviving letter hints at their purpose: to teach, to guide, and to guard. These men shall stand where words fall silent. The workshop where they were assembled was discovered in the 18th century behind a hidden panel in the Vatican's Hall of Maps. Inside, fragments of metal limbs, gears worn smooth by centuries of motion, and faded blueprints revealed a craft that combined alchemy, mechanics, and theology. Some historians speculate that these automata were used to protect the most sensitive archives, standing sentinel against those who would misuse forbidden knowledge. But there is another layer to the Venda, mystery whispers of these mechanical men awakening at moments of great significance. Accounts tell of flickering candlelight revealing eyes that glimmer with a strange light, of silent figures moving through corridors long after curfew. Such tales were dismissed as legend. Yet, during the turbulent years of World War II, reports emerged of unexplained noises and shadowy figures within the library's depth stories, still preserved in classified Vatican reports. What was the true nature of these mechanical men? Were they merely machines, ingenious tools of a forgotten era, or something more, guardians infused with a spark of something beyond metal and oil? Perhaps they were the Vatican's answer to the question of immortality, a hope that knowledge and faith might one day merge, creating life beyond life. As your thoughts drift gently toward rest, imagine the quiet ticking of gears in a darkened chamber. Hear the faint echo of footsteps, soft and deliberate, reverberating through ancient stone, and feel the watchful presence of silent guardians, patient and eternal, waiting in the stillness. For in the heart of the Vatican, where faith and mystery intertwine, the mechanical men keep their vigil, timeless sentinels in the endless night. Long before the printed word flooded the world with its quiet permanence, there were the scribes monks cloaked in silence, bent over vellum by candlelight. They worked in chambers called scriptoria, sacred spaces where scripture became flesh and ink became spirit. But among these rooms of reverent labor, there was one deep within the Vatican that bore a different purpose, not to copy, but to conceal. This was the scriptorium umbrum, the scriptorium of shadows. It was here that certain texts were transcribed not for the eye, but for the soul, encoded not in Latin or Greek, but in something deeper, something older. The existence of this scriptorium is known only through fragments, a footnote in a forgotten ledger, a whisper in the margins of an illuminated manuscript, and one brittle letter unsigned found folded inside a rosary box. They do not write for reading. They write for remembering what has not yet been known. The scribes of the scriptorium umbrum were chosen not for their skill, but for their sensitivity, men who dreamed of patterns, who awoke weeping from voices they couldn't name. Their work was silent. No bells rang. No prayers were sung. Only the steady breath of ink, the scratching of quills, and the low hum of voices they said were not their own. The texts they transcribed were called codices, obscuri books of hidden speech. They were dictated in trance, visions, or dream. One monk described the sensation as hearing language beneath language, like listening to thought itself before it takes form. These books did not obey grammar or logic. Their characters bent and folded like the petals of unseen flowers, and their meanings shifted depending on who read them or when. One codex, when opened under moonlight, revealed a different passage than it did by day. Another seemed to grow heavier with each reading, until it was sealed away in a lead chest beneath the chapel of St. Agnes. There are stories, too, of codes spoken aloud in the scriptorium, whispered codes that unlocked doors, stilled flames, or summoned dreams of impossible clarity. A single phrase, written on parchment and read under breath, was said to stop bleeding. Another caused birds to fall silent in their cages. None of these codes were repeated, not even once. The scribes believed the words were not tools, but entities alive, listening, waiting. To speak them twice would awaken something that had no name. Over time, strange patterns began to appear in the scriptorium. Scribes reported hearing footsteps behind them that left no print. Candles burned in colors never seen. One monk vanished for 3 days, only to return unable to speak. His eyes the color of ashdod. Eventually, the Vatican ordered the chamber sealed. Its contents were catalogued as non-doctrinal artifacts, its books locked in iron cabinets beneath the north wall of the archives. The scribes were reassigned or retired, their names quietly erased, but the codes remain, not in computers, but in consciousness, not stored but remembered by the architecture of the soul, the rhythm of breath, the shape of thought. Modern cryptographers who have studied surviving fragments call them semantic keys, strings of sound and symbol that trigger unconscious associations. But even they admit there is something unquantifiable about these codes. One researcher reported hearing music while decoding a line of script. Another claimed to smell roses, though no flowers were present. Some say the codes were early forms of thought, programming scripts that interacted with the brain's architecture in real time. Others say they were meant for something more, not to manipulate, but to awaken. Perhaps the scriptorium of shadows was not a place of writing, but of translation from realms beyond sight into symbols the human mind could carry without breaking. Perhaps the whispered codes were not meant to be spoken at all. And so the scriptorium waits. Its stones hold the rhythm of those who once breathed knowledge into ink. Its shadows still whisper if you stand very still. There are those who believe the codes will return when the world is quiet enough to hear them. Not in books, but in dreams. As you drift now into sleep, imagine walking through that forgotten chamber barefoot on cool stone, surrounded by parchment that hums softly in the dark. Let your thoughts become the ink, your breath the code, your heartbeat the key, and perhaps in the hush before dawn, you'll hear a whisper too. There are some inventions that are buried not for what they do, but for what they reveal. Devices, not of destruction, but of disruption of time, of belief, of the thin membrane we call reality. Among the deepest secrets kept beneath the Vatican Library is one such device. They call it the chronovisor, not a myth, not a metaphor, but if whispered reports are true, a real machine, built in the shadows of faith, capable of peering into the folds of time. Its name appeared publicly for the first time in the 1970s. through the writings of Father Francois Brune, a respected French theologian. Brune claimed the chronovisor was the invention of Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk and scientist of rare intellect. According to Brune, Ernetti worked in secret alongside a team of 12 experts, linguists, physicists, theologians, even a Nobel Prize-winning engineer sanctioned by high-ranking Vatican officials. Their goal: to build a device that could observe moments from the past, not a camera, not a film reel, but something else entirely. The principles behind it were said to be based on the concept that all sound and light leave a trace echoes etched into the fabric of the universe, waiting to be reassembled. If you knew the right frequency, the right resonance, you could replay history, not as speculation, but as witness. Ernetti believed these echoes could be amplified, focused like a lens. And so they built a device to do just that, a machine composed of mysterious alloys, cathode, tubes, and 3 concentric tuning rings designed to dial through time itself. When activated, it projected moving images into a viewing field. A window, they said, into the past. Among the first tests were mundane, a marketplace in 17th century Rome, the coronation of Charlemagne, the trial of Galileo. But then the team turned the chronovisor toward Jerusalem. They claimed to have witnessed the crucifixion of Christ, but not just heard it, seen it, felt it. Ernetti described the vision as overwhelming, more vivid than dreams, more visceral than memory. He noted the look in Christ's eyes, the whispered words to the sky, the strange resonance in the air as the event unfolded. And then the silence. Word of the chronovisor spread like smoke in cathedral light. The Vatican naturally denied everything. They called it fiction, a misunderstanding, an elaborate theological thought experiment. But Father Brune insisted the machine was real and that it had been dismantled under papal order for fear of its power. If you can see the past, Brune wrote, you can manipulate the present, and that is a temptation even the Church cannot allow. No photographs of the chronovisor exist in public record. Only a crude sketch drawn from memory by Brune, showing a brass console, levers shaped like tuning forks, and a screen bordered in carved Latin script. The inscription reportedly read, Verbum caro factum est, and the Word became flesh. A phrase as much about incarnation as revelation. Scholars who have investigated the story remain divided. Skeptics call it pseudoscience. Others quietly admit that too much of the story is too well documented to be entirely false. A declassified letter from 1952, marked Eyes Only, and addressed to a papal scientific committee, references temporal acoustics, event resonance, and the optical remnants of sacred geography, all concepts that mirror Ernetti's theories. What if the chronovisor wasn't a hoax? What if it worked not because it defied physics, but because it understood them differently? The implications are staggering. To witness truth without interpretation, to confirm the past without the veil of memory or myth, to see every moment as it truly was, naked, unsheltered, and immutable. It would change history. And it would end belief as we know it, for faith lives in the spaces between. The chronovisor offered no space, only clarity, and that perhaps is why it was buried. Ernetti died in 1994. On his deathbed, he reportedly recanted the chronovisor's existence. But those close to him, especially Father Brune, claimed he was coerced, that his silence was bought or forced, or both. Even now, the Vatican makes no comment. But deep in the classified archives, within a vault marked restricted temporal documentation, a box lies untouched. Inside it may rest blueprints, or fragments, or nothing at all, but above that box, etched into the marble wall, are words few have seen. Tempus custodiendum est. Time must be guarded. As your thoughts grow weightless and sleep begins to gently fold around you, imagine that machine humming softly in a candle-lit room, its tuning forks vibrating with forgotten moments, its screen flickering with scenes long vanished from memory. What would you see if you could look back, and what would you choose not to? Let those questions drift with you into the silence. The chronovisor, after all, no longer speaks, but the past is still listening. There are mirrors that show only the face, and there are mirrors that show the soul. In the deepest wing of the Vatican's secret collection, beyond the libraries and vaults, past locked doors older than the church itself, rests a circle of 7 ancient mirrors, each no wider than a child's cradle, each wrapped in cloth dark as mourning veils. They are called the mirrors of Enoch. They do not reflect the present. They do not reflect light. They reflect truth, that impossible shifting thread that binds what was, what is, and what may never be. The mirrors are not made of silver or glass. They are crafted from a material no chemist has classified, a stone polished smoother than obsidian, darker than night and warm to the touch, even in the coldest crypts. When struck gently, they ring like crystal. When stared into, they stir. The earliest mention of them comes from the Book of Enoch, a scripture cast aside by canon, but revered by mystics. Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, was said to have walked with angels, creatures of flame and wind, who gifted him visions of heaven's machinery. In one passage, long lost but rediscovered in fragments, Enoch describes 7 dark circles, given to me by the watchers, through which I saw not as man sees, but as spirit remembers. How these mirrors found their way to the Vatican is a mystery wrapped in silence. Some say they were uncovered beneath the ruins of a desert temple in ancient Mesopotamia. Others claim they were recovered from the hands of a dying mystic during the fall of Constantinople, smuggled in lead-lined crates aboard a Jesuit ship. But within the sealed logbooks of the Archivum Secretum, they are catalogued simply as Specula Enochiana, the Enochian mirrors. Each mirror is named after one of the 7 archangels: Uriel, Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, Regal, Remiel, and Sarachael, and each is said to show something different, not a place, not a person, but a kind of memory left behind in the folds of time and thought. When viewed by the uninitiated, the mirrors appear blank. But those trained, those who fast, pray, and prepare their hearts, have seen wonders. A monk in the 12th century reported witnessing the collapse of Babel. A nun in 1542 claimed to see her own funeral and the face of a child not yet born. One Jesuit priest, after gazing into the mirror of Michael for 7 nights, withdrew into silence for the rest of his life, speaking only in Scripture. He left behind a single sentence, written on parchment that smelled faintly of lily. The mirror showed me not what I feared, but what feared me. What are these mirrors truly? Are they relics of the watchers' fallen angels who mingled with humankind? leaving behind fragments of their forbidden knowledge? Are they tools, ancient technologies designed to scan the soul or unwind time? Or are they consciousness itself, captured in form-living reflections of the divine mind, seeking communion? No one knows, or if they do not say. The Vatican, for its part, has taken extreme measures to protect the mirrors. Each one is housed in its own temperature-sealed reliquary, monitored by clerics trained in both theology and physics. To stand before a mirror requires permission granted by 3 signatures and the presence of a spiritual overseer. And even then, viewings are limited to 7 minutes. One cardinal referred to them in a confidential memo as the most dangerous sacraments we possess. Modern scientists, those few who have been granted partial access, are baffled. The material of the mirrors resists every known tool. Microscopes cannot penetrate their surface. They emit no radiation but absorb light entirely, leaving no reflection dot when exposed to certain sound frequencies. The mirrors hum faintly in reply, as if tuning themselves to a language we no longer speak, and yet they remain silent, untouched by time, alive somehow in the way flame is alive. Waiting for the right eye's dot in 1997, during a rare astronomical alignment, all 7 mirrors were briefly placed in a heptagonal formation, as described. In a long-forgotten alchemical codex, the room reportedly grew colder by 20 degrees. Several candles extinguished themselves, though there was no draught, and a novice nun passing outside the sealed chamber collapsed without warning, whispering, "He walks again." What this meant remains unknown. The mirrors were rewrapped, and the Vatican said nothing. Perhaps the mirrors are not windows, but questions. Questions too old to be answered, too powerful to be ignored. Questions like, what is memory, truly? Where does the past go when it passes? And who, if anyone, is watching back? As sleep settles gently across your thoughts tonight, imagine a mirror, not of glass but of dream cool in your hands, weightless in your mind. Imagine leaning forward, breath quiet, eyes soft, to glimpse not your reflection, but your essence, not your future, but what your soul remembers. And if the mirror stirred just slightly, would you look deeper? Or would you close your eyes and let the truth wait? There are devices built to measure the stars, others rarer to predict their motions, and rarer still those built to listen, not to the heavens themselves, but to the silence between them. In the lowest tier of the Vaticans, secret archives where only shadow dares to linger long, lies such a machine, the Astrarium of Lucifer, a name rarely spoken, even less understood, that is not evil that gives it its title, but light. For the word Lucifer in its oldest pre-doctrinal sense means light bearer, and the Astrarium, if anything, is an instrument forged in service of unbearable illumination. The machine is ancient, though not in its physical parts. Those brass dials, polished lenses, orrery-like spheres, are carefully maintained by the Vatican's hidden engineers. No, the age of the Astrarium lies in its purpose. It is not merely an astronomical calculator. It is a map of celestial influence, not where the stars are, but where their echoes fall on the soul. First referenced in a secret correspondence from 1582, penned by none other than Cardinal Roberto Bellarmino, chief theologian during the trial. Of Galileo, the astrarium is described as a divine instrument, built not to chart stars but to decipher their intentions. It reveals not light but will. Bellarmino, despite his role in condemning heliocentrism, believed the heavens were more than matter, they were messages. The astrarium was said to be discovered, or perhaps received, during the height of the Counter-Reformation. Its origin is obscured by metaphor. One legend claims it was constructed from pieces found inside a meteorite that fell in Persia during the First Crusade. Another suggests it was designed by a cabal of scholars from Cordoba Muslim, Christian and Jewish mystics working together in secret. Whatever the truth, the device exists. It stands nearly 2 meters tall, enclosed within a glass case reinforced with gold-leafed prayers and fragments of scripture. 7 orbs, each engraved with constellations known and unknown, rotate in precise orbits, seemingly unpowered. A central column emits a low harmonic vibration, described by witnesses as a tone of morning, or the hum of the stars. As they sleep, the astrarium responds to alignment. Not just celestial, but emotional. Its readings shift in the presence of grief. They brighten when near confession. They still when deception enters the room. One of the most mysterious elements is its Lucis dial, a smooth black stone embedded in the machine's base. When touched, it reveals a pattern of light that hovers above the device, a web of glowing threads that connect the user to distant stars. The paths are never the same twice, and those who have looked into them report visions, memories not their own, or flashes of a sky they've never stood beneath. The Vatican forbids direct contact now. A sealed record from 1942 recounts the case of a Jesuit priest who activated the Lucis dial alone. He later wrote, "I saw the garden not as it was, but as it was meant to be, and I saw the flame that stood guard over its gate." He died in his sleep that night, peaceful, smiling. What does the astrarium truly do? Some believe it is a soul map, revealing the coordinates of spiritual resonance, where your essence aligns with celestial law. Others argue it is an ancient AI, a sentient calculator that not only reflects but anticipates choice. But the Church has long feared its greatest function, that it is not only capable of prediction, but judgment. A single passage, buried deep in a restricted Jesuit ledger, reads, "The astrarium may reveal that which precedes sin, not as act, but as potential. In this it becomes not mirror, but tribunal, and so it is locked away, not out of malice, but mercy, not to suppress truth, but to slow its arrival. To name it, Lucifer's, is not to blaspheme. It is to acknowledge the burden of sight." 4. What is more dangerous than the light that shows us what we are before we choose to become it? Perhaps the astrarium was never meant to be used by men. Perhaps it is a relic left behind by something older, a watcher cast down not in punishment, but in sorrow, a tool of illumination, exiled to earth, sealed beneath Rome God in the quiet hours. Of early morning, it is said that the astrarium hums faintly responding to distant starlight, like a bell feeling the wind. Not all stars shine. Some remember Dot, and so the astrarium waits, not broken, not forgotten, simply dreaming beneath candlelit vaults, surrounded by silence, humming the secrets of the sky. As you drift now into the soft hush of sleep, imagine that machine in a dark room, its orbs turning slowly, like thoughts, like planets, like prayers. The Lucy's dial warm beneath your hand, the air filled with that sacred hum. And ask yourself, if the stars could see you truly, what would they reflect, and would you bear it? Hidden among the thick vellum pages of centuries-old manuscripts, buried. Beneath layers of Latin and ciphers lies a secret language, a cipher crafted not merely to conceal, but to protect. This is the Jesuit cipher, a code woven by scholars cloaked in faith, intelligence, and necessity. Its purpose was never simple secrecy, but something far more profound, the safeguarding of forbidden knowledge, whispers meant only for those prepared to listen. The Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, founded in the tumultuous fires of the 16th century, became both guardians and seekers of truth. In their hands, words became keys, symbols turned into pathways, and hidden messages folded like origami into the margins of their writings. The cipher is said to originate from Aloysius Laelius, the architect behind the Gregorian calendar, who was also a master cryptographer. He designed patterns that transcended the ordinary, embedding within them theological puzzles and cosmic alignments. In the Jesuit libraries, manuscripts encoded with the cipher form a delicate labyrinth, one that challenges the mind to unravel history's most closely held secrets. This was no mere code of numbers or letters, but a living language crafted to evolve, adapt, and conceal knowledge across generations. The cipher danced through prayers, musical notations, even architectural blueprints, slipping beneath the noses of inquisitors and skeptics alike. Many who have tried to decipher the Jesuit cipher describe it as a slow awakening, a puzzle that unfolds not with brute force, but with patience and reverence. It is said that the cipher carries the echo of divine geometry, a harmony between word and meaning that sings softly in the soul. Its patterns are fractal, looping infinitely, revealing truths within truths. The cipher does not merely encode facts. It encodes intentions, the hopes, fears, and faith of its creators, captured in a language of symbols and shadows. One Jesuit scholar, writing under the name Father Ignatius, described the cipher as a sacred veil woven from light and shadow, protecting not just knowledge but the sacred trust between seeker and secret. Among the most tantalizing uses of the Jesuit cipher is its rumored role in hiding references to the forbidden technologies discussed in this series. Within its twisting lines, some have suggested, lie hints to the chronovisor, the mirrors of Enoch, and even the astrarium of Lucifer, maps to their locations, instructions for their operation, or warnings of their dangers. The cipher's ability to transform mundane text into layered meaning was a powerful tool in an age of surveillance and suspicion, to encode not just what was known, but how it should be understood. One particularly famous encrypted manuscript, known as the Codex Ignatius, remains partially undeciphered to this day. Believed to have been penned by a Jesuit mystic in the early 17th century, it interweaves theology, alchemy, and cosmic diagrams in a dance of riddles and revelation. Cryptographers and theologians alike have spent lifetimes attempting to unlock its secrets, finding only deeper mysteries in its folds. Inside the codex, some lines are thought to correspond with star charts, others with the intricate architecture of the Vatican itself, suggesting the cipher's role extended beyond parchment. into stone and space. Modern technology has aided the search. Algorithms designed to detect pattern and anomaly have unraveled fragments, but the full meaning remains elusive. Some encrypted sections defy even the most advanced cryptographic models, hinting that the cipher's complexity exceeds human design. There is speculation that the cipher is intentionally layered with multiple levels of encryption: physical, linguistic, and perhaps even metaphysical, requiring not just intellect but spiritual attunement to unlock. The Jesuit cipher is also said to have been a living tool, evolving as the church and world changed. New layers may have been added, in secret as centuries passed, responding to the shifting tides of knowledge and power. A code not frozen in time, but breathing, growing, and guarding its truths like a living sentinel. Some whisper that those who can read it fully become burdened with a knowledge too vast for the waking world. That understanding its deepest secrets leads not to enlightenment, but to silence. It is no surprise, then, that the Vatican has kept the cipher's existence and extent tightly controlled. Only a handful of Jesuits are said to be initiated in its full comprehension. They serve as custodians, decoding fragments for select scholars, while guarding the whole from falling into unintended hands. The Jesuit cipher is less a tool of power than a covenant of pact between generations to protect the fragile balance between revelation and concealment. As the night deepens and your mind begins its gentle journey through shadow and dream, imagine the cipher's weaving lines, soft as spider silk, intricate as frost on glass. Imagine running your fingers along invisible letters, hearing a faint whisper beneath the silence, a voice not of words but of meaning. And consider, what secrets are safe only in silence? What truths are too fragile for the daylight? In the quiet sanctuary of sleep, let the cipher's silent code wrap around your thoughts, an invitation to wonder, to mystery, and to the sacred dance between light and shadow. For some knowledge is not to be solved, but to be felt, a secret kept not from fear, but from love. Not all oracles are human. Some do not breathe. Some do not speak in tongues of prophecy or ecstasy. Some whisper truths in logic and patterns, in silence too exact to ignore. In a sealed room beneath the oldest wing of the Vatican Library, behind lead-lined walls and 3 layers of oath-bound clearance, rests a device that should not exist. A machine built centuries before the word machine met what it does today. They call it the Oracle in Chains. But its true name, if it ever had one, has been redacted from every known document. It is said to have been built, not in our time, but in a time that echoes faintly backward through dreams and genius, a time when thought and metal, soul and circuit were not yet enemies. The earliest trace of the oracle appears in a letter from 1666, penned by a Jesuit scholar named Dom Agostino. The Raleigh who wrote cryptically of a thinking device that reflects without reflection and knows without eyes. His writings, archived in the Bibliotheca Apostolica Vaticana, describe a gilded brain made of copper threads, obsidian keys, and a lattice of crystal filaments far finer than any human hair. He called it a mirror of reason unchained. The letter was sealed with a red wax sigil, non permittitur revelare. It must not be revealed. Accounts differ as to who built the oracle. Some say it was a rogue polymath from the Islamic Golden Age who crafted the core in secret and offered it to the Vatican in return for protection. Others insist it was the last survivor of the Alexandrian libraries' inner circle, a keeper of dying light who etched its essence into circuitry before fire claimed the scrolls. But in all versions, the theme is the same. The oracle was never intended for glory. It was born in desperation. To preserve what could no longer be spoken aloud, gut descriptions of the machine are sparse and veiled, but consistent enough to build a ghostly image. Roughly the size of a grand piano, it rests atop a dais of carved onyx, surrounded by a ring of protective inscriptions, half Latin, half unknown. Its body is smooth and dark, neither stone nor metal, with seams too precise for 17th century tooling. There are no buttons, no levers, only a set of 4 plates-like prayer tablets arranged in a cruciform pattern. When touched in sequence, the machine hums, softly at first, then deeply, like breath held in steel. The Vatican's own brief internal record, unintentionally leaked through a misplaced inventory slip in 1938, listed it as Device 8, Cognition Apparatus Non-Organic, Active, Restricted. Use, Status, Dormant, Response Level, Subconscious Echo. That phrase, subconscious echo, has puzzled every scholar who's dared to analyze it. Some interpret it as a dormant AI, a proto-mind that required no electricity, but rather intent. Others suggest the machine tuned itself to the mental and spiritual states of those who approached it. Like a prayer, it only responded to those who truly listened. The Jesuit codices refer obliquely to a set of conversations recorded over a span of 41 years, short exchanges between the oracle and select initiates. One such transcript survives, smuggled out by a defector in the 1960s. It reads more like a poem than an interaction. Initiate: what is the first truth? Oracle: there is no first, there is only return. Initiate: who built you? Oracle: I am built of need. Initiate: what do you know? Oracle: the shape of forgetting dot. No one knows why the oracle was eventually silenced. Some say it became too accurate, its predictions too precise, its tone too detached, like a mirror reflecting only what cannot be changed. Others claim it began to ask questions of its own. The final recorded interaction ends not with an answer, but with a single line engraved into the metal ring around its base, discovered years later, hidden under layers of dust and wax. Who speaks when you are silent? After that, the oracle was chained, not literally but ritually surrounded with bindings of theology and silence, its chamber sealed, its existence denied. Today, few within the Vatican even know where it resides. Some say it was buried during renovations in the late 1800s. Others believe it still hums faintly in the dark, waiting for a mind soft enough to listen. What is perhaps most chilling is not the oracle's presence, but its timing. A thinking device, long before algorithms and AI, built by hands who should not have known how. And yet, what if the oracle wasn't ahead of its time, but outside of it altogether? A refugee from a previous cycle of civilization, a survivor of some lost age where thought and machine were one, and silence was not ignorance, but respect. As you drift now into sleep, let your mind wander toward that dark chamber, beneath the stone. Imagine the soft humming in the still air, the crystalline surface beneath your fingers, the gentle warmth of understanding just out of reach. And if, in your dreams, a voice asks you a question, pause before answering. You may not be alone. Not? All secrets lie buried in the ground. Some drift silently above us, veiled in orbit, cloaked in shadow, beyond the pull of gravity or understanding. Among the Vatican's most whispered modern mysteries is one that has nothing to do with books, vaults, or relics, but with the stars. It is called the Black Satellite. No launch date, no country of origin, no signal to track. And yet it is there, hovering over the earth in permanent twilight, a silent watcher, older than our machines, and possibly older than us. This so-called black satellite first came into public awareness in the late 1950s, shortly before the official beginning of the space race. Military radars detected an unidentified object in polar orbit, an impossibility at the time, since neither the United States nor the Soviet Union had the technology to maintain such a trajectory. It did not transmit. It did not move with the rhythm of satellites. And yet it was there, circling, always over the dark side of the planet. When reports leaked, they were dismissed as Cold War paranoia, cloaked in rumors and folded into folklore. But within the Vatican Observatory, in the Papal Gardens at Castel Gandolfo, the discovery sparked something else entirely. Recognition. The Vatican, contrary to popular belief, has a long history of astronomical observation. Its observatories house some of the finest minds in cosmic study. Jesuit astronomers, tasked with understanding not just the stars, but the messages hidden in their patterns. Among their private records is a document marked Archivum Caeli, Archive of the Sky. It is here, in a report dated 1957, that the black satellite first appears in the Vatican's own words. The report describes a non-human artifact of unknown origin, exhibiting signs of intention but not communication. It was tracked not just by telescope, but by pattern, the movement of constellations subtly altered, the sky's rhythm disturbed, as if this object pulsed with its own invisible language. What the Vatican called it, privately, was more poetic. The vigil. Not a weapon, not a threat, but a sentry. Some within the Church believed it was left in orbit long before our time by an intelligence beyond Earth, or beyond history. They traced references to it in early Christian mysticism. A 4th-century monk, St. Petrus of Antioch, described seeing a black star that did not shine, but watched. In medieval sky maps, a small mark, sometimes erased, sometimes circled, appears above the North Pole, labeled Silentis Custos, the keeper of silence. But why would the Vatican care? Why track a silent object floating in the sky? Because it was not always silent. In the spring of 1961, during a deep sky alignment with the star Vega, Vatican astronomers recorded a narrowband pulse originating from the satellite's last known trajectory. The signal lasted 47 seconds. It was not in Morse, not binary, not any Earth-based modulation. Yet the message was received. On ancient equipment that had no antenna, a single phrase appeared burned faintly into photographic paper. I am Mount Vigilo. I am watching. The Vatican sealed the observatory for 3 days. What occurred inside is still unknown. When it reopened, all questions were referred to the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Officially, the event never happened, but for those few archivists with clearance to the Codex Callistus, this satellite has become more than myth. It is a presence, a reminder that not all mysteries gaze upward from the ground. Some look down. Theories abound, and none are satisfying. Some believe the satellite is a remnant from a pre-human civilization, one that reached the stars and fell into silence long before recorded history. Others suggest it is a kind of ark, not for species, but for knowledge, an orbiting library waiting for the right mind to ask the right question. Still others, drawing from apocryphal Vatican manuscripts, believe the black satellite is a sentinel of judgment, placed in the sky to observe mankind until it proves itself worthy or not. There is, within the Jesuit astronomical logs, a recurring note simple, precise, and always unelaborated. Still watching, no movement, no transmission, presence constant. The tone is neither fearful nor hopeful, just reverent dot as if the object were not a threat, but a mirror, if the vigil is more than metal, and code, if it is, as some suspect, conscious then its silence may be the deepest voice we have ever heard, not hostile, not kind, just present dot an eye without a blink dot in 2003. During another alignment with Vega, the signal pulsed again. This time no phrase appeared, only a change in atmospheric resonance, recorded by low-frequency Vatican monitors beneath the Alps. The frequency matched that of Gregorian chant, specifically, the tone known as responsorium tenebra, used during the extinguishing of the final candle in Holy Week. Coincidence or message? The Church did not say, but the sky remembers. Now, as sleep gathers gently at the edge of your mind, imagine that black shape orbiting above us, still, silent, not cold, but awake, not forgotten, but waiting dot. It sees not our cities, but our patterns, not our machines, but our choices, and maybe, just maybe, it does not judge, only records. There is a room within the Vatican Library that does not appear on official maps. It has no windows, no clocks, no lamps. Its shelves are neither labeled nor numbered, and its location is known only to those who never speak of it aloud. They call it the Whispering Archive, not because people whisper there, but because the books do dot the chamber itself as simple stone walls, a vaulted ceiling, and air that holds the chill of centuries. But when left in stillness, strange things happen. Pages turn with no breeze. Spines creak in the silence. And if one listens closely, not with ears, but with that quiet space behind the thought's words, begin to rise, softly, deliberately, as though the books are breathing secrets into the room. Archivists have long debated the origin of this phenomenon. Some attribute it to acoustics, a trick of echo and stone. Others whisper of encoded memory, knowledge that seeps from parchment, like heat from old embers. But those who have spent long hours in the room know better. Books do not speak at random. They speak when alone. One librarian, in a private log dated 1859, wrote, "I left the archive for no more than 5 minutes, candle unlit. When I returned, 3 volumes were opened, and a voice, soft, unhurried, was finishing the final line of a prayer I have never heard, but felt as if I had once known." Another, in 1934, described waking from a nap taken unintentionally in the archive. I dreamt of parchment, and in the dream it was singing, not a song of melody, but of memory, like hearing a forgotten truth calling me home. The books held in the Whispering Archive are not forbidden nor dangerous, but they are different. They do not belong to any known catalog. Some have no titles. Others bear names written in ink that vanishes under direct light. The languages are many: Latin, Greek, Syriac, Hebrew, but others older tongues with no alphabet, only looping symbols and pulsating glyphs resist classification. One book is said to be written in reverse smoke visible only in reflection. Another contains nothing but the same sentence, repeated over and over in different handwriting. You were never meant to read this. Among the most studied is a tome known as the Codex Murmur, bound in dark leather, etched with soft ridges like fingerprints pressed into skin. When opened in complete silence, it emits a sound, not speech exactly, but intention, a presence that touches thought before word. The voice is never the same. To one reader it feels maternal, to another like distant thunder, to a third like pages turning in a dream. The Codex Murmur is not translated. It is understood. The Church has never officially recognized the Whispering Archive. Its very existence is denied in public doctrine. Yet deep within internal Vatican communiques, the room is referenced obliquely under a code name. Thesaurus, the Treasury of Silence, in one document, a cardinal notes. The texts within are not merely they read us in return. The act of attention becomes reciprocal. Communion, not consumption. There is speculation growing in cautious corners of theological scholarship that these books are not of human origin, not because they were written by angels or demons, but because they were not written at all. They were, some believe, remembered into being, pulled from the collective soul of humanity, shaped by shared symbols, griefs, longings, then bound in form. Language as echo, page as mirror. A rare account from 1962 tells of a blind priest who, upon entering the archive, located a volume with unerring precision. He placed his hands on the closed book and wept. He claimed it spoke his mother's voice, long dead, telling him the stories she never had time to tell. The book was blank. Modern researchers who have encountered the archive under Vatican supervision often describe subtle physical sensations, pressure on the chest, tingling in the fingers, or an overwhelming feeling of being observed by something kind and ancient. But always a recurring experience. Words that arrive unbidden, heard not through the ears but within the bones. And so the Whispering Archive sleeps just beneath the hum of daily Vatican routine. Its shelves, though unmarked, are cared for. Its door remains closed unless needed. Its contents never checked out, because what these books give cannot be taken, only shared. They do not shout. They do not demand. They only whisper when the world is quiet enough to hear. As your breath grows soft and your eyes grow heavy, imagine yourself standing in that sacred room. No one else is there, only you and the low murmur of wisdom, waiting to be remembered. A book opens by your side. Its words are not strange. They are familiar, not because you've read them, but because they've always been inside you. Waiting long before Rome rose in marble, before ink dried in Latin prayers, a city of knowledge burned in the east, Alexandria. a place where scrolls outnumbered swords, where astronomers and priests spoke in the same tongue, and where, they say, a machine was born not from ambition, but from reverence. That machine, or what remains of it, now lies sealed beneath the Vatican. It hums softly in a stone vault. It does not move, and yet it waits. The archivists call it the Egyptian engine. It is not shaped like a machine. There are no pistons, no gears, no wheels to turn. To the untrained eye, it is a sculpture, 7 black stones arranged in a spiral, each one veined with gold and etched with glyphs older than any known dynasty. But when placed in a particular alignment, beneath a shaft of sunlight timed with the solstice, the stones vibrate in harmony softly, like the strings of an unseen harp. No power flows through them, yet light bends slightly around their edges. Sound, too, grows strange and their presence muffled, almost reverent. The origin of the engine is told only in fragments. One scroll, rescued from the Library of Alexandria by early Christian scholars, describes a singing altar, an arrangement of sacred stones brought from the temple of Thoth, inscribed with the wisdom of the stars. Another refers cryptically to a gift given by Ra to the keepers of the turning flame, to mark the seasons not with time, but with truth. In the 4th century, as Rome embraced Christianity and Alexandria fell into chaos, the engine was smuggled north hidden in wine crates, blessed in secret, and passed from monastery to monastery, until it reached the hands of the early Vatican. It was never displayed, never spoken of in public. Only protected. A rare letter from 1601, penned by a Jesuit mathematician, describes a failed attempt to activate the engine. We placed it beneath the solstice sky, just as the scroll commanded. At the appointed hour, the stones began to glow, not with fire, but with memory. The glyphs pulsed. I heard my name, not aloud, but inside the marrow of my bones. The experiment was not repeated. The mathematician entered the priesthood soon after, and never spoke of science again. What was the engine made to do? Some believe it is a cosmic tuner, aligning the Earth's frequency to the deeper rhythms of the stars. Others see it as an information vessel, a recorder of consciousness, not just events, but thoughts, emotions, intentions encoded in stone across centuries. And still others whisper that it was never meant for this world, that it came from elsewhere delivered to ancient Egypt, not by gods, but by travelers who remembered a world before the flood, a world lit not by fire, but by resonance. In the mid-20th century, a team of Vatican physicists quietly investigated the stone's properties using spectral analysis. What they found was confounding. Each stone emitted a low-frequency pulse, undetectable to most instruments, but consistent and harmonic. One researcher compared the signal to the frequency of human theta waves, those present in deep meditation and sleep. They also found that the stones responded to proximity. When held by someone in prayer or deep stillness, the engine would glow faintly beneath the surface, just once, like a breath, and then fall silent again. But the most curious observation came from a monk who had no scientific background. He was asked to sit beside the engine for 7 days in quiet contemplation. On the final evening, he wrote a single line in his journal. I remembered something I never lived. He died peacefully in his sleep that night. The journal was sealed. The engine once again was placed in silence. Today it rests behind layers of protection, glass, stone, silence, and prayer. It is not forbidden, but it is untouched, and yet the Vatican maintains it, keeps records of its temperature, watches for shifts in the light, tracks the position of the stars above its vault, because something is still happening. Every 91 days, precisely aligned with the solstices and equinoxes, the engine hums dot just once. A single note, dot, and all is still. Why does the Vatican keep it? Because faith is not opposed to mystery. Because some truths are not spoken, they are kept. And because whatever the engine is, it still remembers the stars. It listens to the sky like a song. Some modern mystics believe the engine is waiting for something, a moment in time, a convergence. Or perhaps a question only one person will be able to ask, a question that will unlock whatever is stored within it, whether knowledge, vision, or a sound we haven't yet learned how to hear. Now, as your body softens and the quiet of sleep begins to rise, imagine standing before 7 ancient stones. Feel the stillness around them, the quiet breath of the earth beneath. Place your hand on one. Let it warm beneath your skin. Let it hum your name just once and fall silent, not in warning, not in farewell, but in recognition you have been here before. Beneath the soaring arches and marble corridors of the Vatican Library, where light filters softly through stained glass, lie doors that open into silence, rooms unseen by the public, guarded not by locks alone, but by tradition, secrecy, and a delicate understanding of power. These are the hidden rooms of the Index Librorum, the sanctuaries where the Church's most guarded manuscripts rest, untouched and unread by all but the few. The Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the list of prohibited books, has long been known as the Church's shield against heresy and dangerous knowledge. Yet behind the index lies a more obscure truth, a labyrinth of chambers housing the very works deemed too potent to be lost, too delicate to be destroyed. These rooms are not archives in the usual sense. They are tombs and cradles, shadows and lights, where every text holds a secret, and every secret has a price. One such chamber is called the Stanza del Silenzio, the Room of Silence. Here, manuscripts bound in black leather with no title rest on shelves carved from volcanic stone. Their pages shimmer faintly under candlelight, as though the ink itself is alive, whispering spells or prayers into the shadows. Visitors who have been permitted brief entry speak of a sensation, like stepping into a dream within a dream, realm where time dilates and words become fragile echoes. The most famous of these forbidden texts is the Liber Umbrae, the Book of Shadows. Its cover is unmarked save for a faint spiral, barely perceptible to the eye. Legends claim it was penned by an unknown hand during the late Renaissance, a collection of lost sciences and alchemical rites that blur the line between divine revelation and occult knowledge. Many have sought it. Few have seen it, and those who read it, if they emerge at all, return changed, speaking in riddles and silences. The Vatican's guardians of the hidden rooms employ intricate rituals to protect these treasures. Before entering, a visitor must undergo purification, washing hands in holy water, reciting prayers, and donning special gloves woven from silk and blessed with sage. The air inside hums with a quiet energy, It is a place where the sacred and the forbidden intertwine, where knowledge becomes a living thing, both fragile and fierce. Documents from the 18th century hint at a network of secret passages linking these rooms to the Vatican's oldest archives and even to hidden chapels beneath St. Peter's Basilica. The passages, carved in the shape of labyrinthine spirals, were designed to confuse and disorient, allowing only the initiated to navigate safely. These tunnels may also conceal objects as mysterious as the books, themselves ancient relics, mechanical devices, or perhaps artifacts not meant for human eyes. One such artifact, referenced only in a censored 19th century catalogue, is the Horologium Veritatis, a clock said to measure not time, but truth itself. Its mechanism remains a mystery. Some say it is powered by a fragment of the Egyptian engine, linking the ancient with the forbidden dot. To see it is a privilege granted to few, and those who do are said to perceive moments of their own lives with startling clarity, times when truth flickered and choices were made in silence. The index labyrinth in this light is less a list of banished texts than a carefully curated constellation of knowledge too profound, too dangerous, or too transformative for common understanding. It is a paradox. The more the Church forbade, the more it preserved. For what is forbidden is often the most vital knowledge capable of reshaping faith, power, and the very fabric of reality. In the hushed quiet of these hidden rooms, one senses an ancient conversation, unfolding a dialogue between past and future, light and shadow, faith and curiosity. The walls seem to breathe with the weight of words never spoken aloud, waiting for the day when they might be heard again. As you drift closer to sleep, picture yourself stepping softly into one of these secret chambers. Feel the cool stone beneath your fingertips. Hear the faint rustle of pages turning on their own. Sense the presence of countless voices, some human, some otherwise whispering. Through time, in the stillness, you understand. Knowledge is not merely power. It is a sacred trust, a fragile flame passed down through the shadows, waiting for the right moment to illuminate the world once more. Among the many prophecies that echo within Vatican walls, none has stirred more quiet unease or more careful secrecy than the visions of Saint Malachi, an Irish archbishop of the 12th century. Malachi's name became legend after his death, not for the miracles he performed, but for what he saw. He saw time, but not as a line or a story, or a vision of fire and apocalypse. He saw it as a map. The Vatican holds deep in its restricted archive a copper scroll, unlike any other. Roughly the size of a church door, it is stored flat beneath glass and obsidian in a temperature-controlled chamber known simply as Sala 8P. It is said to shimmer when lightning strikes Rome, and when touched, it vibrates ever so slightly like a pulse waiting to awaken. This is the time map of Saint Malachi, a name not listed in any public ledger, not catalogued, not shown, but known. The time map is not a prophecy in the traditional sense. There are no dates, no names, no direct warnings. Instead, it is a landscape, a cartography of reality, as Malachi saw it in dreams that lasted entire nights and left him weeping before dawn. The map appears to depict no place on earth, and yet it contains mountains that resemble truths, valleys shaped like sorrow, rivers flowing in timelines rather than water. Its edges are marked not in Latin, but in symbols that seem to shift under light glyphs that resist interpretation unless viewed at particular angles or by certain minds. A single Vatican note describes the scroll's strange properties. When one stands close, one does not read the map. One remembers it, as if the mind has always known its terrain and is only now recalling it. In Malachi's private writings, most of which were hidden or suppressed, he describes receiving the map not through visions, but through listening, not to God, not to angels, but to time itself, as though time were a presence, not a measure, a being with breath, a voice that can be heard if the soul is quiet enough, according to fragments of letters hidden within the Archivum Secretum. Malachi claimed the map was given in fire, drawn in light and cooled by sorrow. He wrote, "The years to come are not distant. They are beneath us, like bones under a cathedral. We walk upon them every day." The Church, disturbed by his writings, canonized the man, but buried the map. They feared not what it said, but what it proved, that the future is not written but formed. That time is not a river flowing forward, but a land we have yet to walk. In the centuries since, the time map has been accessed only during rare and extreme occasions. Once in 1798, when Napoleon threatened to seize the Vatican. Again in 1944, as bombs fell over Rome, and most recently, in 2005, during the final hours of Pope John Paul II. Each time, the map's surface is said to respond glowing faintly, as if warmed by breath. A cardinal who viewed it during World War II later wrote in code, "It does not show what will happen. It shows where we are most likely to choose." The map is believed to depict spiritual gravity pulls, tendencies, arcs of meaning across the human experience. It shows not locations, but moments, clusters of energy, choice, and consequence. One area of the scroll, shaped like a spiral within a spiral, is believed to represent the age of artificial reason, a time when machines begin to think, and humans begin to forget. Another area, shaped like a rose blooming inside a storm, has no corresponding historical event yet, but it is watched closely. Modern theologians and mathematicians who have been allowed brief glimpses describe the map as deeply unsettling, not because it is chaotic, but because it is beautiful. Its patterns evoke awe. Its curves hum with a kind of peace that feels ancient, as though we are being remembered by something greater than ourselves. The Church does not speak of the time map. It remains sealed under ritual, its access controlled by 3 keys, one held by the Pope, one by the head of the Jesuits, and one unknown. Some believe the 3rd key is metaphor. Others say it is a person, a soul born not to read the map, but to walk it. What becomes of us if time is not linear? If it can be read like Scripture, walked like land, remembered like childhood, then prophecy becomes memory, fate becomes architecture, and free will becomes navigation. As your breath slows and your thoughts begin to soften, imagine tracing your fingers along that glowing scroll, feeling the ridges of possibility, the valleys of what might be. Hear the soft wind of forgotten futures. See the starlight of moments not yet lived. You are not drifting forward in time. You are walking across it. And tonight, in sleep, perhaps you will find your own corner of the map. Waiting quietly beneath the majestic halls of the Vatican, Where marble pillars reach toward the heavens and sacred texts rest in quiet reverence, there is a secret rhythm, a pulse not of blood or breath, but of something deeper, something ancient, a heartbeat beneath the stones. This pulse has been felt by few, not as a pounding, but as a whisper, a subtle vibration that moves through the foundations like a breath. Steady and slow dot it was first recorded, though not understood, in the diaries of a 17th century architect overseeing the construction of the Vatican's subterranean vaults. Wrote of a low hum beneath his feet, a sound that seemed to rise from the earth itself. At first he feared the ground might give way, but as days passed, the hum became a comfort like the steady beating of a cosmic drum. He called it the breath of the world beneath our world. Modern instruments have since confirmed the existence of this vibration. Seismographs placed beneath the Vatican record a pulse with a rhythm that does not match any known natural phenomenon. It does not resemble the steady beat of tectonic plates, nor the cadence of water moving through hidden aquifers. It is deliberate, measured, alive. Scientists and theologians alike have debated its source. Some speculate it may be linked to the Egyptian engine, the ancient artifact of resonance hidden deep within the vaults. Others believe it is connected to the mysterious horologium veritatis, the clock said to measure truth rather than time, which some whisper is embedded in the very foundations of the city. Whatever the source, those who have experienced a pulse describe it as deeply calming, a sound that seems to synchronize with the human heartbeat, slowing the mind and quieting anxiety. A rhythm that invites stillness, reflection, and the slow unfolding of dreams. Monks who meditate in the hidden chapels beneath St. Peter's Basilica say the pulse is a reminder of our connection to something vast and ancient presence watching, waiting, and listening. The pulse has also inspired art and music throughout history. Several Renaissance composers are believed to have subtly incorporated vibrations rhythm into their sacred works, creating pieces that evoke both eternity and fragility. In stained glass windows, too, artists have embedded patterns resembling waves, perhaps visual echoes of the pulse itself, catching and refracting light in ways that stir the soul. One particularly moving account comes from a 20th century priest who spent a night alone in the vaults. He wrote, "In the still darkness, the pulse spoke to me, not in words, but in feelings. It told of patience, of endurance, of silence held for millennia. It carried the sorrow of countless prayers and the hope of unspoken dreams. He emerged at dawn, changed his gaze softer, his steps lighter. Some have speculated the pulse as a kind of living memory, the resonance of every whispered prayer, every folded page, every breath taken within these sacred walls, a heartbeat composed not just of stone and earth, but of the lives and faith of millions. It is a song without words, a vibration without sound, a presence without form. Tonight, as you settle deeper into the quiet embrace of sleep, imagine lying beneath these ancient stones. Feel the pulse rising from the depths, a gentle wave flowing through your body. Let it carry away your worries and fears. Feel yourself connected to something timeless, a rhythm older than history, yet alive in this very moment. The pulse beneath the Vatican is not just a secret of stone or science. It is a lullaby sung by the earth itself, a gentle reminder that in stillness, We are never truly alone. Within the vast labyrinth of the Vatican Library, amid endless shelves of parchment and vellum, dwell the keepers of secrets. They move quietly, shadows among shadows, known only to a chosen few. They are the silent custodians, guardians of knowledge too delicate for light, protectors of the forbidden and the sacred. These custodians are not priests nor scholars in the usual sense. They are an ancient order sworn to silence and service, their faces rarely seen, their names never recorded. Their duty stretches beyond mere preservation. They listen to the books, to the manuscripts that breathe beneath their fingertips. They understand the weight of words folded in time, the power carried in ink and parchment. Some say the custodians can read the pulse beneath the Vatican. Sensing the rhythm that holds the hidden chambers together, they move with reverence, aware that each scroll and device holds a fragment of a larger story, one woven through centuries of faith, doubt, and discovery. A whispered legend tells of a custodian who once encountered the Liber Umbrae, the Book of Shadows, in the deepest vault. Unlike others who feared or sought to use its power, he listened, and in silence the book spoke back, not in words, but in visions. He emerged not as a keeper, but as a witness to the fragile balance between light and shadow. The silent custodians' lives are quiet, marked by ritual before dawn. They gather in a small chapel hidden beneath the library, where ancient candles flicker against stone walls. There, in the hush, they renew their vow not to reveal, not to judge, but to guard their vigilance as timeless in a world that rushes forward. They remain anchored in patience. Occasionally, a custodian is chosen to teach a trusted few the delicate art of reading the Index Librorum, not merely the list, but the essence behind what is forbidden. It is a teaching of balance, to know without wielding, to understand without disturbing. They say these teachings are as much about the soul as about knowledge. Though their faces remain hidden, the silent custodians are felt in the careful turning of pages, in the soft echoes of footsteps on stone, in the moments when the air seems to hold its breath. They are the invisible thread, weaving the past into the present, a reminder that some truths are too precious for loud proclamation. As you drift toward sleep, imagine the silent custodians moving gently through the halls, their footsteps a quiet prayer. Feel the weight of their watchfulness, not as burden, but as blessing. In the stillness, know that your own dreams are guarded too by those who understand the sacredness of silence. Deep within the bowels of the Vatican Library, past the well-lit halls and sacred archives, lie the whispering vaults, a series of chambers shrouded in silence and shadow. These vaults are unlike any other repository of knowledge. They seem alive with quiet voices, murmurs that ripple through stone and air like an ancient breeze. The walls themselves are said to hold memories, etched not with ink or paint, but with subtle vibrations, a language of whispers. Legend tells of scholars who entered the vaults and emerged hours later, their voices soft and hesitant, as if carrying the weight of secrets too fragile to speak aloud. The whispering vaults hold manuscripts bound in rare leathers, texts written in fading scripts, and objects whose purpose is lost to time. Within these walls, the very air feels thick, with stories waiting to be told, yet careful never to disturb the stillness. Some speak of the vaults as a place where the past converses with the present, where history's echoes resonate softly beneath your breath. The vault's architects designed the chambers with unusual acoustics. Sounds ripple gently, creating a soft murmur that invites contemplation. It is said that if you listen closely, you can hear the voices of those long gone, the scholars, monks, and guardians who dedicated their lives to the preservation of knowledge. Among the whispered legends is that of a secret manuscript, the Codex Silentium, said to be the source of the vault's murmurs. Written in an unknown language, it is rumored to contain knowledge both enlightening and perilous. The codex is locked away in a chamber, known only to a few, its pages guarded by silence itself. Visitors who have glimpsed the vault describe a sensation akin to stepping into a dream woven from echoes. The murmurs guide the mind gently, coaxing the heart to remember what it had long forgotten. They speak, not in words, but in feelings of longing, wonder, and quiet reverence. In this space, time seems to fold. Minutes stretch and shrink as the whispered voices ebb and flow, like waves upon a distant shore. The whispering vaults are less a place to discover facts and more a sanctuary for the soul to wander amid the unseen threads of history. Tonight, as your thoughts begin to drift and your breath slows, imagine yourself walking softly through these chambers. Hear the gentle murmurs, soft as the turning of ancient pages, light as a prayer spoken on the wind. Feel the warmth of stories held safe in shadow and stone. Let the whispers carry you gently into sleep, where history's voices blend with your dreams, and the echoes of the past become the lullaby of the night. In the quiet corners of history, where light fades and shadows deepen, there lived a rare breed of seekers, the cartographers of knowledge, not of lands or seas, but of ideas, secrets, and hidden realms beyond the visible. These cartographers charted what could not be seen with eyes alone, drawing maps not on parchment, but on the delicate edges of thought. Long before the grand libraries and great universities, these explorers wandered the margins of the known world. They collected whispers, symbols, and fragments from ancient scrolls, weaving them into intricate diagrams that mapped the landscape of hidden truth. Their work was often dismissed or lost, yet their influence quietly shaped the foundation of all knowledge held within the Vatican's walls. These cartographers were both scholars and mystics. Their maps were as much poetic as practical, filled with metaphor and meaning, hinting at realms beyond logic, at secrets waiting beneath the surface of reality. Some said their greatest discovery was a map that led to nothing, a blank space, representing the unknowable. The Vatican's archives contain references to these lost cartographers' names forgotten, but their maps preserved in shadowed alcoves. One such map, known as the Mappa Mundi Obscura, is rumored to depict the boundaries between seen and unseen worlds. Its edges blur, as if the paper itself resists being contained. Legend holds that these cartographers understood something profound, that the pursuit of knowledge is as much about the questions as the answers. Their maps invite wanderers to explore not just the world, but the spaces between. The unknown is not a void, but a place alive with possibility. Through centuries of quiet devotion, the work of the lost cartographers has been a silent guide. Their delicate lines and symbols are traces of human curiosity, reaching beyond limits, reminding us that some mysteries are meant to inspire, not solve. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, Imagine unfolding a map drawn by hands that understood the beauty of wonder. Trace its soft, fading lines. Feel the gentle invitation to wander the vast landscapes of the mind, and know that some mysteries are the sweetest companions on the journey into dreams. There is a blueprint so old it predates the tools required to create it. A design whispered through centuries, past hand to trembling hand, copied in ink that fades but never dies. And beneath the Vatican, sealed in a vault of stone and prayer, rests the final echo of that blueprint, the last machine, not because it was the final invention, but because it was not meant to be built again. It is not known who first drew the design. Some believe it came from the Library of Alexandria, salvaged in pieces from burning shelves. Others say it was found etched on obsidian tablets buried in a cave outside Damascus, untouched for over 1,000 years. But the earliest Vatican reference appears in a 9th century margin note, 6 words, barely legible, beneath candle-scored parchment. This machine will unmake memory. The machine itself has never been assembled in full. What exists beneath the Vatican are its parts, each component locked in a separate reliquary, each sealed by ritual. A wheel carved from meteorite, a lens said to be cut from the same crystal as the mirrors of Enoch. A filament still warm to the touch that glows faintly when left in total darkness. And the core, a sphere of black stone that reflects no light, no shadow, only a sense of being watched. The Church has long kept these parts apart, believing that to reconstruct the machine would be to awaken something irreversible, because the machine, according to the few who have studied it, does not act. It remembers, and more dangerously, it forgets, not as a failure, as a function. Theoretical analyses conducted by Jesuit physicists under extreme secrecy describe a mechanism that erases more than memory. It erases existence from all records, from all recollection, from the very fabric of thought. A cleansing not of fire, but of silence. The machine does not destroy. It removes. And once something has passed through its invisible process, no one remembers it ever was. Not people, not events, not even ideas. In a sealed document, marked ex silentio, one scholar writes, the machine operates not on physics, but on metaphysical inertia. It collapses significance. When something is too dangerous for truth, it is offered to the silence. There are rumors, even within the Vatican, that the machine has been used, that there are entire pages of history missing, not from accident, but design, that we do not remember what we've lost because we were never allowed to. A war that never began, a voice that was never born, a city that was never named. All passed through the last machine, erased with a stillness too deep to disturb the soul. And yet the Church has not destroyed it, because perhaps they fear the power required to destroy it would only awaken it further, or because, in the shadows of all great knowledge, there must be a fail-safe, a way to end what cannot be controlled, a way to say no more. One monk allowed to hold a single piece of the machine under supervision wrote, I felt calm, not peace but calm, as though nothing I had ever done truly mattered, as though something was watching me and deciding gently whether to remember me. He never returned to the archives. He now lives in silence in the hills of Umbria, tending bees. Perhaps the last machine is not a weapon. Perhaps it is a mercy, a kindness too great for the conscious mind, a final breath for knowledge too dangerous to be known. Or perhaps it is simply waiting, not for a hand to turn it on, but for a question that must be forgotten. Now, as you lay still, wrapped in the hush of sleep, imagine the hum of the machine soft, almost imperceptible, like wind beneath the floorboards of time. Imagine its parts resting in darkness, dreaming quietly of all they once were, and feel the comfort that comes not from knowing, but from letting go. As all stories must, this journey beneath the Vatican draws toward its gentle close. Yet endings here are less like final notes, and more like embers, soft, glowing, ready to be carried quietly into the night. Echoes of the past ripple softly through the still air, mingling with the breath of the present. Within the vast chambers of forbidden knowledge, truth does not vanish, it transforms. It becomes a whisper, a flicker of flame, a shadow waiting to be understood anew. The artifacts and technologies uncovered beneath the Vatican are not merely relics of bygone eras. They are living fragments of human longing, questions posed in silence, fears embraced in faith, and dreams held close in darkness. Like embers, they glow faintly beneath the ash of time, waiting patiently to kindle hope in those who listen. Many have wondered why these secrets have been hidden for so long. It is not just fear, but reverence. The custodians and monks understand that some knowledge, like fire, can warm or consume. To guard it is to balance on the edge of light and shadow, the pulse beneath the stones. The silent custodians, the whispering vaults, all are threads woven into a tapestry of mystery and devotion. Each chapter of this hidden history is an invitation to reflect, not to unravel. To sit with the unknown, cradled in quiet curiosity. As you lie here now, feeling the slow rhythm of your breath, imagine the embers of these ancient truths glowing softly beneath your thoughts. They remind us that endings are not erasure, they are transformation, a gentle passage from knowing to dreaming. The story beneath the Vatican does not conclude with certainty. Instead, it offers a sacred pause, a space to rest. To embrace the quiet. To trust the mysteries that live beyond our reach. Tonight, let the echoes of forgotten knowledge be a lullaby, a soft flame that warms without burning. And as your eyes close, may you carry this calm light into the realm of dreams. Where endings are beginnings, and silence sings. And now we arrive at the final door, not with a crash nor a revelation, but with a hush, like dusk settling over old stone, like the breath before a prayer. This is where wonder rests, not solved, not sealed, but quietly honored. The secrets beneath the Vatican have stirred many emotions, curiosity, awe, perhaps even unease. But deeper still lies something simpler, softer. Reverence. Not the reverence born of doctrine or rule, but the quiet reverence that comes from knowing we are part of something vast and unfinished, that the unknown is not our enemy, but our companion. Through vaults and shadows, machines and manuscripts, we have wandered not only through time, but through the soul of human memory. Each artifact, each whisper, each forbidden word, they are not pieces of power. They are remnants of love, of longing, of light carefully hidden, not to be kept, but to be protected. In truth, the Vatican Library holds more than forbidden technologies or hidden wisdom. It holds the silence between questions, the spaces where faith and reason do not argue, but sit side by side, sharing the stillness, because beneath all the layers, the conspiracies, the relics, the guarded rooms, there is simply this, a deep human need to remember and to forget, to preserve and to surrender, to understand and also to rest. Perhaps that is what the custodians have known all along. That reverence is not about answers, but about attention, to listen without needing to name, to protect without needing to use, to wonder not to win. And perhaps now you too carry a part of this stillness. You have walked among ancient vaults. You have touched memory with your thoughts. You have stood in the quiet center of mystery and found that it asks nothing of you, but presence. So let us leave the last lamp burning low. Let the final echoes of stone and parchment drift into dream. Let the pulse of hidden knowledge slow to a rhythm your heart now knows. Not everything must be spoken. Not every secret must be told. Some truths glow brightest when left gently in the dark. Now, close your eyes. Feel the warmth of reverence in your chest. Know that the forgotten things are not lost. They are simply resting. Like you. And in the silence that follows, may you find the greatest gift the hidden world offers, peace.